her out for being a flagrant liar, because he isn't responding with petty gossip and sensationalism. The public's perspective shifts as a result of that moment. Not only do the rumors affect me, but they also affect our families, children, and other loved ones. Rage with wounded clarity. He expresses his desire for their friendship to revert to its previous status and his wish that things had never gotten out of control. The softening of his voice is noticed by the subtle barbs, the half-statements that allow for plausible deniability, and the sudden pivot that deals with the shade come next. This is that. Sadness and assurance, audiences lean in, sensing that this isn't gossip to him. This is a betrayal. However, the entire narrative changes when he brings up Tamar and Mendeecees' relationship in front of him. Says he was anxious about it long before the night at V12. Discusses how everything felt weird to him. How Mendeecees would constantly show up when they went out to eat. And how she sat on him during a meeting. Not jealous, not just unsettling. When he tells about what happened in the back of the car, his discomfort, her sitting on Mendeecees, the kissing and the small space where he sat inches completely out of the moment. But the story doesn't stop there. Not quite yet. Skits more deeply. Funky explains why she didn't go upstairs at her house. Instead of avoiding it, Skitsy portrays it as a choice based on respect. He wouldn't get in the way of two persons wanting to. He says he's back at home. The calmness of that sentence is disconcerting, breaks the time frame to leave. She resides upstairs. She tweets about the tragedy, the blood, the urgent questions. But he isn't there. After seeing, he headed home on Mendeecees' lap. Instead, then birds themselves in crafting their own narratives based on the quiet between them. According to her interview, and she is unsure of what went wrong. His timeline indicates that he was neither involved nor present upstairs. Because of the stark narratives, the audience starts to see the transcript as proof. Scroll through comments, begin unspoken. They talk about paradoxes, biased memories, and discrepancies. Quiet whispers change. Viewers are confused as to what exactly she was trying to, if the evening that she never revealed to the public, and if she later mentioned trauma without providing context. Pregnancy rumors begin to surface. Not because Tamar or Funky say so, but because viewers associate his precise state, her ambiguity, and her narrative holes with something greater that they believe could explain all the tension, a secret that would shake more than her reputation. When Funky discusses the questions, the atmosphere becomes oppressive. At the club, others question why she was on his lap and why she acted in that manner. Because the public is now interested in more than just a messy night or a damaged friendship. It has to do with defense, motivation, and what would happen if everything was made public. Every information he reveals is reinterpreted through that lens. Tamar's refusal to call for help. She moved on to social media right away. She maintained that she was unaware of what had occurred. She later deleted posts that offered clarification. With every piece, the sense that her story something deepens. By the end of this section, the tension has grown into something electric. Viewers no longer see this as a simple he-said-she debate. Instead, they see a gap between two opposing histories, two emotional realities, and a third shadow in the distance. Another question begins to come up in the discourse as all continue to spread. Why are some people now story was only way really had nothing to hide. Test is used to do this. The blown up yet. It mounts. Quiet that ensues after his first admission doesn't feel like, and when that pressure becomes inevitable, that's when the region of slow transition, the kind where tension grows as opposed to abruptly blowing up. The story begins to veer toward a psychological collapse that neither of them expects. The atmosphere becomes more intense, as if everyone he is no longer reacting to a certain moment can be sensed by observers. He is reacting to months of silence, distrust have suddenly come to the surface. He leans forward again, and the camera seems to shut in on him. He doesn't soften his voice, as if the lens that something important is going to happen. He doesn't make an effort to conceal his annoyance. He deals with the behavior right away, saying it hurt him more than it's almost sorry. According to him, Tamar does just enough before pulling back and pretending she didn't do anything. On the internet, that claim is frequently made. Instead of being angry, his tone is one of tired, like someone who has seen a pattern happen too often to pretend it was a mistake. And that fatigue penetrates the movie. Those spectators are being guided into a section of the story that Tamar never talked about. His remarks have already been spliced alongside her written interview responses by users. Her voice seems distant, ethereal, and almost fragile. His is laced with pain, grounded and acute. The friction between those conflicting impulses slows down her pauses, which commentary channels call the crack in the narrative. When they contrast the accuracy of his timeline with the vagueness of her memories, they concentrate on his face. Conjecture has a life of its own, but when he moves away from the emotional temperature increases again and complaints to the section of the story he has been avoiding for months. He doesn't start by accusing. It's off with the kind of discomfort that lingers. He says he was never at peace with Tamar and Mendeecees' interaction, including those in the song video, that 8-second video for theories on the internet. Not because he makes a big issue out of it, nor because he depicts it as a controversy, but the agony seems too real and unadulterated to be ignored. There is no performance in his tone. There isn't any hyperbole. He appears to be confessing something that he had kept to himself to keep a loved one safe. And that's the exact reason why people find it appealing. People begin rewatching old films of Tamar and Mendeecees at public events in an effort to locate anything that might resemble the uneasiness he talks about. His comment, according to some, it hasn't been stated. According to some, it just highlights tension that existed prior to the interview. However, there is one thing that everyone agrees upon. At this moment, the story shifts from confusion to a darker, emotional terrain. The chronology that generated the most rumors comes next. She wrote of waking up covered in blood that night. Without any ceremony, he lifts it, but it's obvious he's perplexed. He mentions Tamar's online assertion that she woke up and almost died. People freeze the video, replay it, edit it into reaction video, and compare it to her poise during the interview after it becomes viral. This disparity acts as gasoline because of the illogical contrast. People begin to question why her account appears so disjointed. Why does her memory seem fragmented? Why did she emphasize dread in the interview but not in the post? Then, herself, it is the mismatch that ignites the flames. As he can describe what transpired that night, the narrative becomes increasingly concentrated on a single topic of feeling. He was unable to fully understand what he was witnessing. The subsequent finding, which viewers call the turning point, centers on thought discomfort. He talks about how Tamar by kissing him while sitting on his lap in the automobile. At that point, the internet goes down, frame by frame. It is slowed down by commentary channels because this clip gave the entire era a fresh perspective. Rewinds and threads explode. Comments start to come from those who had never followed the story. His voice gets heated as he talks about it. It's because he's confused, not because he's jealous. Viewers get the feeling that there was more going on that night than Tamar acknowledged due to misunderstanding. A form of emotional dissonance. Conjecture starts to become more serious at this point. No longer charges or unequivocal declarations. Online investigators begin to piece together timeframes, though, based only on the silence between stories and speculation or refuted. Perplexed as to why Mendeecees appeared multiple times in one evening. They question why Tamar's recollection does not reflect the emotional significance of that moment. They are why a person who was unaware of the events made decisions that are each inquiry is still unresolved. Anxiety rises. The audience no longer has the impression that they are discussed that same evening. They now feel as though they are two different realities, one calm and the other vibrant, and they are looking. The atmosphere around the story changes once at the point where the two storylines split. The interview tapes provide shadows rather than clarity as this portion ends. Slowly and silently, deeper reality is orbiting the timeline's periphery, waiting to be recognized. The question that now pervades every thread begins to be murmured by viewers. ... What happened later in the... Neither of them can fully explain if they are both being truthful about what... The story gets more intricate as the night goes on, from pragmatism to emotion. From the places they visited to the cracks those places, the nervousness builds in silently, like fog that, instead of rising like a sudden storm, creeps across a road until you realize visibility has vanished. This point where the unsaid plague book. After that, his story doesn't get particularly dramatic. It's not that loud. It's almost too calm, which draws viewers in. He discusses the subtle pressure of being pulled into conditions that he did, his reluctance to go anywhere new, and his need to go back. But underneath all of that, the audience hears something distinct. A sense of tiredness, as if he had already spent too many nights dealing with a reality that came to accept. He describes how the view everything. However, before the intelligence of that moment disappears. Tamar unwittingly triggered another internet disaster. The viral on the internet. It sounds called a warning. But today, when he explains it, his tone is more one of surprise than doubt. Rephrased, he woke up in a pool of blood and almost died. The replay of this moment becomes an obsession on social media. Instead of focusing on the commentators, what the claim started. Thousands of people are awaiting answers. Thousands of people believed he would reveal something dark or horrible. Thousands were ready to brand him as the enemy before he had even spoken. With every re-upload, reaction ditched the same question of whether she truly believed she was going to die continued. What makes it sound like during the interview? Is she narrating someone else's story? However, the false information on the internet only becomes worse when he talks about what happened after she posted that article. It's the underlying, not the emotional shock. He mentions the occasion when she declined medical help, which now seems like an important piece in a puzzle with too few corners. In other words, he says Tamar almost died down an ambulance practically right away. This serves as the inspiration for more steps. Refusing medical assistance suggests that she wasn't as hurt as she asserted. Some claim that the refusal could be the result of fear, surprise, or a wish to avoid attention. But others who observe a different, the most uncomfortable reaction is that her story sounded emotionally fragmented. The tale appears painfully full, and neither makes sense without the spaces between them. Her hesitancy and the tone of her hushed voice start to resonate with viewers. As commentary channels slow it down, she is a vivid recollection of the occasion. Rather of showing anything, the contrast becomes trust because despises empty spaces. And this story is full of them. In this story, then he shifts again, moving toward the part of history where even he can't help but notice how she and Mendeecees are interacting. He doesn't level any charges. He only conveys discomfort, which isn't an emotional truth that viewers might encounter even in the absence of exaggeration. The scenario that challenges public opinion, however, doesn't change. The real. She was sitting on Mendeecees' lap. Their closeness, the kiss, the weight of it strikes deeper, even though he has already talked about it. It was the silence that followed the altered story, not the act itself. The alteration, according to never presented reality. In front of the assembly, the timeline begins to falter. The public's reaction, her performance, and his performance. They don't all agree, and to be chatting around instead of speaking the truth. The tension enters the scene where Tamar goes back to her home, which many people think changed how the story unfolds. His statement is unsettling because of its other than mistrust. Describes stepping not to follow her upstairs and believing that the situation was private. But it's only when he recognizes the person who went with her that the importance of that choice becomes clear. PARAPACD, according to him. Tamar just went upstairs with Mendeecees and his online pal. That cue blows up. It's not displayed as a charge. It's not administered with malice. It is simply silent and heavy, like a detail he never meant to reveal. And the silence that follows seems to drown out everything he says. Theories spread swiftly. It is known as, for some people, the pivotal moment. Some complicates the puzzle. However, everyone agrees that there is an unanticipated blind hole in the time frame. Steer clear. At this moment, Tamar and Funky don't fully explain this missing chapter. Once again, this from confusion to something more psychological. Two characters were stuck in a story and couldn't unwind. He describes how club members called him to ask why Tamar was sitting on Mendeecees' lap. Viewers' perplexity combines with that of witnesses. As he describes these calls, they made him realize not because he was angry. He had no notion what kind of situation he was in. What kind of relationship he had been witnessing was unknown to him. He didn't understand the depth of their friendship until that evening. However, when Tamar discussed the night later, she totally reburdened. The audience is number 4. Such silence serves as a trigger. For him, it becomes a wound. It eventually becomes the fault line. When the documentary storyline begins to fall apart as transpired next, online storm, the abrupt accusations, and the pressure of having to provide an explanation for a night he wasn't there. There were thousands of eyes watching, waiting, and making presumptions and answers that he was unable to provide. This part of the chronology no longer contains any. It has to do with impact, emotional collapse, and the loss of trust. Additionally, viewers start to ponder something deeper the more he talks about the aftermath. Was Tamar shielded by her avoidance, silence, or something she... His chair's environment changes. Camera starts to roll, his shoulders slant tight, and the playful tone he started with fades. Attracted hush that there's no laughter or careless pull for clicks. But it feels like the breath has been drawn out of the room. He is no longer speaking to a crowd. He's talked one phrase is a... He informs Tamar that she was a bold-faced, bald-headed liar on timelines while looking straight at the camera. There, the frame keeps... Instead of being angry, his eyes are tired. The words feel heavier each time they are uttered, and his jaw is tightened. Tamar's calm sit-down with L'Oreal, on the other hand, reveals that she attended a friend's birthday party and threw a friend a birthday party. But she actually occurred to her. Two different energies. The internet does what it always does. Channel splice Kalau next to her little confusion. Slow down her face and concentrate on his. More like something not adding up, this not matching, and someone lying in the comments. What starts another awkward description of the interview, more important question. Given how hazy her memory is, framed so accurate, the talk then takes on a new dimension, even though he never expresses it. Funky talks about how often Mendeecees just so happens to show up there. The audience delves further into the story than the transcript ever does. All right, I understand what's happening. All right, everyone, I have something to share with you all. The internet is blazing. He saw them kiss and he felt uncomfortable with their closeness. The rumors shift from betrayal and infidelity to something even more explosive, according to comments. DNA, paternity, and the actual importance of a pregnancy claim. I can't be involved in adults, so that's just going to happen. I am unable to have the entire thing because it is on the one hand, yes, that she has, I have no idea what really happened. But Funky says he knows one thing for sure. Home after that stairs. Now, viewers are asking, nobody is ready to answer on television. What's going on? ... Somewhere between the two versions, if nothing deeper. Why is there a sudden DNA test? Tension is gradually rising. Mistrust develops in layers, just like a closed door does. The tone is weighty, quiet, and entirely shifts from irritation to something more pointed, more like a discovery than a tirade. The audience can tell as soon as Funky shifts from talking about the interview in the evening. Even before he says anything specific. It's in the way he exhales, maintains eye contact. It's as though he's finally made up his mind to say something that he's been attempting to keep quiet for months. The requests for food, the late night connections, or presents, all start to come back to him. And the group were merely looking for food when they reached out. He told them that everything in the area was closed and suggested that they go see Chris on the roof. That should be but his account of what happened, it has a deliberate, non-exaggerated pattern sound out that Mendeecees had already materialized out of thin air. They land spot. He's now realizing that his delivery doesn't appear too dramatic when he suddenly repeats. And the way he says it, and the way his voice drops, hit viewers like a breadcrumb. If anything, it appears resigned, like to someone viewing that he would never want to see again. At that point, people begin posting their own theories online in real time. Comments begin to draw parallels he doesn't explicitly show. Why did Men's reappear? Why did the night move from one location to another? Is Tamar adamant that she'd throw a buddy a birthday celebration? Funky, on the other hand, adamantly disputes that such a party ever occurred. Stark contrast. Viewers start breaking the evening down into time periods to see which version feels staged and which feels planned. Funky recalls being quite exhausted. Said he was not even interested in going to Sauce and Buckhead with them. He says Zoe got in touch with him again and told him that Tamar wanted him to get out of his car and go with them to V12. Viewers can see the detail right away. He doesn't do any of the moves. She does. They are approaching another impromptu encounter with the same individual with her. Back at the counter, or right there at TSA, the cost supports TSA's new Confirm ID system, which verifies using biometric or biographic cheat checks. According to CBS News, when he is painting the night as if she had planned something, the tone becomes tight. If identity cannot be verified, access is not guaranteed. The proposed $45 price is a substantial increase from the $18 that was modified from TSA and so on. A friend, he doesn't yell. He's not a he talks as though the dramatic elements have been eliminated because he has seen the scene so many times. If the buddy was really throwing a birthday party, he said, her name ought to have been on the plaque. Weird. Is suing Donald Trump in retaliation for any tariffs he imposed on them. He is suing them in retaliation. Instead, he portrays her account as something she made up with the intention of implying that he tricked her, while, in his view, he was merely present. For her own objectives. People start giving me letters or statements on letterhead from Tamar's attorney's office. And the tone of the document is chilling while I'm doing whatever I need to do. As a result, the letter's reading becomes more intense. The difference between what she says and what he insists actually happened, despite his assertion that I poured my heart into Heartbreak Retrograde. The project, which consists of a 6-song EP with a short video, was never intended to honor anyone. In the interview, she calmly stated that she went home as usual. He accuses her of lying bluntly. That shocks the internet rather than in hushed tones or subtle attacks. Calls her out for being a flagrant liar because he isn't responding with petty gossip and sensationalism. Perspective shifts as a result of that moment. Not only do the rumors affect me, but they also affect our families, children, and other loved ones. Rage with wounded clarity. He expresses his desire to revert to its previous status and his wish that things had never gotten out of control. The softening of his voice is noticed by the audience. The subtle barbs, the half-statements that allow for plausible deniability, and the sudden pivot that deals with the shade softness is that. Because of the mixture of sadness and assurance, lean in, says and gossip to him. This is a betrayal. However, the entire narrative changes when he brings up Tamar's relationship in front of him. He says he was anxious about it long before the night at V12. Discusses how everything felt weird to him. How Mondays would constantly show up when they went out to eat. And how she sat on him during a music video shoot. Not jealous, not accusatory. At that point, it's just unsettling. When he tells about what happened in the back of the car, his discomfort, her sitting on Mendeecees, the kissing and the small space where he sat inches away but felt completely out of the moment. But the story doesn't stop there. Not quite yet. Skits more deeply. Explains why she didn't go upstairs at her house. Instead of Gitsy portrays it as a choice based on respect. He wouldn't get in the way of two persons wanting to be alone. He says he's back at home. The calmness of that sentence is disconcerting since it neatly breaks the time frame. To leave. She resides upstairs with two men. She tweets about the tragedy, the blood, the urgency, and the unanswered questions. But he isn't there. After seeing her, he says he headed home on Mendeecees' lap. At this moment, instead than focusing on the words themselves, viewers begin crafting their own narratives based on the quiet between them.